to chapters number 45, Surah Al-Jathiyah, and chapter number 46, Surah Al-Ahqaf. Then we can be prepared for tonight's discussion, inshaAllah. For the love of Aba Abdillah al Hussain, sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. A second for Her Eminence Lady Zainab al-Kubra and Sayyida Kulthum, sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And for the awaited Savior of humanity, Imam al-Mahdi, Ajjalallahu ta'ala faraj al-Sharif, sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Alhamdulillahi alladhi hadana li hadha. وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين سيدنا الممجد بشير المصدق المصطفى الأمجد محمود الأحمد أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين ولعنة الله على الظالمين من الأولين والآخرين أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وفرقانه الحميد وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وكذلك أوحينا إليك قرآنا عربيا لتنذر القرى ومن حولها وتنذر يوم الجمع لا ريب فيه فريق في الجنة وفريق في السعير آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوا على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل. Awaited Savior of humanity, Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam, my respected teachers, elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. عظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمصابنا أبي Abdillah al Hussain صلوات الله وسلامه عليه. Continuing on with our series of how Islam spread in the city of Mecca, in the movement of the Holy Prophet of Islam, Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. We have reached the point of years 5, 6, and 7 in the prophetic era of Mecca. Yesterday, we looked at the chapters from number 37, Surah As-Safat, all the way to chapter number 42 of the Quran. And we highlighted a number of themes that existed across these chapters. We found that there were many who were beginning to leave Islam due to the pressures that were upon them. There were some that were full-fledged taqiyya, and there were others who were being martyred, and it eventually got to the point where the Quran revealed the invitation for the first group to go on their migration from Mecca to Abyssinia. To respond to this, Allah Jalla Jalaluhu reveals a sequence of verses across these various chapters, from chapter 37 to 42 of the Quran. 1, do not turn back. Your plea will be null with Allah Jalla Jalaluhu if you revert out of Islam once you have accepted it. Number 2, increase your ability to sustain the pressures that are upon you through sincere devotion and worship of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. Allah Jalla Jalaluhu also provides a number of verses about the extent of the support system upon the fledgling mu'mineen. The universe is supporting you. And what we highlighted yesterday was several ayat in which Allah Jalla Jalaluhu mentions malaika are supporting you. They are praying for you. They are working on your behalf. And what we learned is that no matter the extent of the pressure upon us in our lives, we have the system of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu favoring us. There could not be a stronger support that you and I require once we realize that the entirety of creation is with us, no matter the a'da of Allah may be against us. For tonight, inshallah, what we wish to be able to look at is the next stage of these issues as they develop within the city of Mecca. We mentioned that there was great pressure upon the fledgling mu'mineen, and the way in which the pressures were, many were actually leaving Islam. How did the Quran respond to this and give guidance to the mu'mineen? Two things occurred. The first thing was that Allah Jalla Jalaluhu invited the first migration to Abyssinia. The second was to strategically split the enemies of the Prophet around Hijaz. One of the ways in which the Prophet managed to bring Islam across Arabia was to strategically know where to target and how to target by virtue of the next stages of revelation that were occurring. In the order of revelation, what occurred next were the following chapters. What we find is that chapter number 45 of the Quran, which is Surah Al-Jathiyah, is the 65th chapter of the Quran to be revealed in the Tartib al-Nuzuli. After this, chapter number 46 of the Quran, Surah Al-Ahqaf, is revealed as the 66th chapter of the Quran. Significantly after this is chapter number 18, Surah Al-Kahf, which is the 69th chapter of the Quran to be revealed. And after this, the 16th chapter of the Quran, which is the 69th chapter to be revealed in order, which is the 70th chapter to be revealed in the order, Surah Al-Nahl. Al-Jathiyah, and then Al-Ahqaf, and then Al-Kahf, and then Al-Nahl. These four chapters had a number of ways to deal with the tragedies, the circumstances that were befalling upon the mu'mineen. And this, inshallah, will be our discussion tonight. We mentioned on a previous night that the Prophet spent much time pondering and thinking about his own community and trying to understand the strengths, the weaknesses in them, to understand the reactions of some when the message would receive them, who would agree with the message and why, and who would disagree with the message and why. A corollary of this is the geographical locations that would also be ready to accept the message and why, and which geographical locations might reject and why. Now imagine for a second, if you lived in a region of Arabia or further afield, and you already had a culture of believing in a particular prophet of Allah, or your culture was very invested in the history of a particular prophet, if another prophet comes and links himself to that prophet, or begins to remind you of that story of that prophet, it would become easier for you to accept that second prophet, that new prophet, by virtue of the way in which he attaches himself to the one that you are already proximate to, that you already follow as a culture. These four chapters of the Quran sought to be able to guide the Prophet on where to go next. And what this would do is this would start to break certain regions which previously were against the Prophet, but now one leader of a tribe or one tribe itself would break off from within that region and begin to accept, and that in itself would make the rest of the region slowly come towards Islam. Why? Especially in the Arab societies, and even until today, there are tribes and there is a tribal system. Often it just required the targeting of the head of the tribe. And if the head of the tribe accepted Islam, the rest of the tribe would be willing to accept Islam. That was the tribal system. And until today, sometimes when there are tribal conflicts, if just the tribal leader accepts, the rest of the tribe will also follow suit, because there is an expectation of wisdom, an expectation of leadership. And therefore, if one accepts, the rest will accept. Secondarily, if one tribe accepts, it is more likely that a second tribe will be willing to accept. The Prophet understood this by virtue of seeing how the Quran spoke to him of this matter and his knowledge of the Arab tribes. In our own circumstance, we need to understand these matters the same. You and I live here in the UK. Sometimes we don't realize that the UK is not the same. There are different countries with different mindsets. There are different regions with different mindsets. There are even different cities with different mindsets. For example, in the north, in Liverpool, you will know that this is a city that is quite unique within its culture. It is one city that refuses to read the trash from the Sun newspaper. Why? Because of what the Sun newspaper has done to it for generations, for years. And so it has a slightly different way of thinking. If you bring into Liverpool the Sun, they might come and, wallop you or something and tell you, get up, don't bring that kind of nonsense into my city. The city has a different way of thinking. Even when it came to Muhammad Salah, obviously I'm not a Liverpool fan, I don't want to fall in the pitfalls of hell, but you will see that they have this different way of dealing with people. They even sing about Muhammad Salah. They even sing about him being in Salah and being in prayers. It's a different type of city. If we understood this, it becomes easier for us to navigate some of the people in these cities, to talk to them, to do da'wah, to be able to do tabligh with them in a way that may be more amenable to them. They already have some background knowledge. There is already a softness of heart. And so we can target cities or cultures or groups a little bit easier. Of course, the Prophet understood this. Of course, the Quran understood this. And so what we find is that in this period of time, Allah Jalla Jalaluhu reveals a number of chapters to speak about matters that are occurring regionally and to try to target regions and locations such that they may come closer towards Islam. That you can target people or groups within a region such that the region itself becomes more amenable towards Islam. Have a look. Open the Qur'ans, inshallah, all of you. Chapter number 45 and then chapter number 46. And I want you to see the themes and the way in which Allah Jalla Jalaluhu addresses locations. In this era, Allah Jalla Jalaluhu targets communities and particular locations. The two locations were number one, Yemen, and number two, Syria. These two are outside of mainstream Hijaz, mainstream Mecca. One, of course, is to the south, one is more towards the north. And the way in which Allah Jalla Jalaluhu did this was to reveal to them and remind them of prophetic events that occurred within their own region, such that it would be a means of them thinking about the prophets from their own region. Imagine there was a shrine here of a prophet. There was the burial site here of a prophet. Or this area had been destroyed by a community that had abandoned or attacked a previous prophet. The fact that you and I inhabit this land where that shrine is or where that destroyed land is, And then we begin to hear ayat after ayat being revealed about this land. It brings the matter to mind. It allows us to be able to reconnect with that prophet, that story, and align the idea of Tawheed with that story, with the Tawheed brought by the Holy Prophet of Islam, Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Surah Al-Jathiyah, chapter number 45. If you open now to Surah Al-Jathiyah, chapter number 45, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And for some reason it is not here in front of me. Khair, inshallah. We will find it. For some reason it is not in front of me. Even now, if you turn for a minute, I'll come back to Surah Al-Jathiyah, inshallah. If you turn to chapter number 46, Surah Al-Ahqaf, from verse number 6 and 7, and then inshallah we will look through some other verses as well. Verse number 9. Chapter number 46, Surah Al-Jathiyah. Everybody's there, inshallah? Chapter number 46, Surah Al-Ahqaf. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Verse number 6. وَإِذَا حُشِرَ النَّاسُ كَانُوا لَهُمْ أَعْدَاءً وَكَانُوا بِعِبَادَتِهِمْ كَافِرِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala introduces Surah Al-Ahqaf by telling us that there are groups and groups that work with each other. And in reality, those groups that work with each other on the Day of Judgment, they will end up becoming enemies of one another. Those groups that warned one another and said, we are from this region, Hijaz, you are from another region, Yemen, for example. There is a madman, there is a soothsayer, there's a mischief maker, and he is going to turn people away from you. What you'll find is that in reality, on the Day of Judgment, then these people will actually become enemies to one another. Do you really wish to be able to rely upon one another? On the Day of Judgment, really you will be enemies and run away from one another because of what you have been doing. And when men are gathered together, they shall be their enemies and shall be deniers of what they had previously been worshipping. Previously, what you had seen is that various different delegations were coming and spreading around the region and saying, be careful of this man Muhammad and his letters and his messengers and delegations. Verse number 7. وَإِذَا تُتْلَى عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتُنَا بَيِّنَاتٍ قال الذين كفروا للحق لما جاءهم هذا سحر مبين. And when our clear communications are recited to them, those who disbelieve say with regard to the truth when it comes to them, this is nothing more than a clear magic. Surah Al-Ahqaf was revealed primarily to reiterate the story of Prophet Hud, salamullahi alayh, in the region of Al-Ahqaf. This was in the region of Yemen. And so the Prophet was being targeted, or the Prophet was being advised by the Quran, target this particular region, tell them the stories of their own prophets, of their own regions, and it will be easier for them to be able to understand you and to be able to respond to you. Verse number 9. Surah Al-Ahqaf, verse number 9. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. قُلْ مَا كُنْتُ بِدْعًا مِنَ الرُّسُلِ وَمَا أَدْرِي مَا يُفْعَلُ بِي وَلَا بِكُمْ إِنْ أَتَّبِعُ إِلَّا مَا يُوحَى إِلَيَّ وَمَا أَنَا إِلَّا نَذِيرٌ مُبِينٌ. You are a region that has such knowledge. Your region, Al-Ahqaf, is named after the history of Prophet Hud, salamullahi alayhi, and the people that had been destroyed in that location. Surely this group, this region, would be most sensitive to receiving a message from Allah Jalla Jalaluhu, having known what occurred to them in their ancient past. The fact that they reiterated their stories, passed them down, made sure that people of that region did not forget the story of Prophet Hud. Allah Jalla Jalaluhu tells the Prophet, "Qul," say. And this is important, because in the Quran, when Allah Jalla Jalaluhu says, "Qul," say, Allah is telling the Prophet, spread this. I know how to be able to make a response that if you say these words, it is a means for you to be able to help your message be conveyed. Similarly, for you and I, we can learn from this that there are certain retorts, there are certain ways to be able to speak and spread the message. Look at what the Prophet is told, especially to a region like Al-Ahqaf, like Yemen, that has already received Prophet Hud alayhi salam and experienced a destruction and knows all about it. مَا كُنْتُ بِدْعًا مِنَ الرُّسُلِ. I am not the first of the apostles. I'm not the first messenger to you. The fact that you're so much aware of the previous prophets in your region, do not imagine that this message is strange to you. وَمَا أَدْرِي مَا يُفْعَلُ بِي وَلَا بِكُمْ. I don't know what the outcome is going to be for me, but I also don't know what the outcome is going to be for you either. But I do not follow anything other than what has been revealed to me. Verse number 10. قُلْ أَرَأَيْتُمْ إِنْ كَانَ مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ وَكَفَرْتُمْ بِهِ وَشَهِدَ شَاهِدٌ مِّن بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ عَلَى مِثْلِهِ فَآمَنَ وَاسْتَكْبَرْتُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَهْدِي الْقَوْمَ الظَّالِمِينَ. Imagine you are the people of Ahqaf and you receive an ayah like this. Say, have you taken time to consider? Have you taken time to really think about if this message is actually from Allah? What happened to you in this region the last time this message was from Allah and you denied it? And if you disbelieve in it, وَكَفَرْتُمْ بِهِ, have you taken now time to imagine what happened if it is from Allah and you disbelieved in it? And a witness from amongst the children of Israel has borne one of it like that. So he believed, whilst you yourselves are being big with pride and arrogance, Allah does not guide the unjust people. All throughout this chapter of Surah Al-Ahqaf, it was a way to be able to stimulate the minds and the reminders for the people of what had come to them previously. As an example, turn to verse number 24 of Surah Al-Ahqaf. Verse number 24 of Surah Al-Ahqaf, Allah Jalla Jalaluhu reveals the description of the destruction that befell them. This destruction was known to them. It was passed down to them in folklore. It was passed down to them in poetry. It was recited on occasions. Allah Jalla Jalaluhu recites it. فَلَمَّا رَأَوْهُ عَارِضًا مُسْتَقْبِلَ أَوْدِيَتِهِمْ قَالُوا هَذَا عَارِضٌ مُمْطِرُنَا بل هو ما استعجلتم به ريح فيها عذاب أليم. So when they saw it as a cloud, thinking that this was fine, it's a cloud coming, when they saw it advancing to them, they said, this cloud is going to bring us abundant rain. Actually, it was going to bring a blast of wind, which was ultimately going to be their destruction. The people of this region were regaled with their own histories that allowed them to become a little bit more cognizant and ready to be able to understand this situation. Now, the Prophet was very intelligent in spreading this message. What we find according to our history books is that Yemen, as many of you will know, was a famous region for markets, a famous region for certain types of produce. They were brilliant at making carpets. They were brilliant at making brocades. And so the marketplaces were very strong. Where else was very strong? Mecca was also a very strong marketplace. You know, even until today, that normally these different marketplaces, they tend to work with each other, don't they? Sometimes when you have a shop, you will see that someone has invested in the shop. They've opened up the same shop but in a different marketplace, haven't they? Why? It builds the brand, doesn't it? It makes sure that it's international. You liked that shop there, you're also more likely to go to that shop there. In the same way, the Quraysh in Mecca had very close ties with the marketplaces within Yemen. The Prophet ﷺ knew not to target that area because the message would fall not just on deaf ears, but would actually face great oppression against them. According to this, what we find is that the ruler of Yemen at that time was Khusro Parviz, and in Iran and in other regions, they actually preferred, or Yemen preferred the rulership under Khusro Parviz at that time from Iran. And they were not yet ready in those marketplaces to be able to receive the message of Islam. The Prophet kind of went by this and decided to target different tribes and decided to be able to bring tribes towards Islam. The first major individual to convert to Islam in Yemen was by the name of Malik ibn Amir al-Ash'ari. This individual came to Mecca to meet the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and actually, according to some narrations, converted to Islam himself and then reverted back to Yemen to start spreading the message within Yemen. The outcome of this was twofold. Two stages occurred. The first was, in the 7th year after Hijrah, Malik ibn Amir al-Ash'ari brought his entire family from Yemen to Medina al-Munawwara in order to convert them all after the Battle of Khaybar. And the entire family reverted back to Yemen in order to await instruction from Islam. What happened after this was that in the last year of the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet sent delegation after delegation to Yemen in order to bring them towards Islam. The Prophet sent Khalid bin Walid. Khalid was unable to convert one person. He then sent Mu'adh bin Jabal. Mu'adh was unable to bring anyone towards Islam. The Prophet then sent Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullah wa salamuhu alayh to this region of Yemen and sent with him a letter. Imam Ali alayhi salam is narrated to have said, Ya Rasulullah, I've never been a judge. I've never had this particular role that I have to bring an entire region towards Islam. What is your guidance? The Prophet placed his hand upon the chest of Ali ibn Abi Talib and at this point made a dua for him. Amir al-Mu'mineen is narrated to have said, from this point onwards, I never had any doubt in the words that were coming forth from my tongue. At this point, Amir al-Mu'mineen goes towards Yemen and he reads out for them a letter from the Prophet. On that one day, the entire tribe of Hamdan converts towards Islam on that very one day. And after that, the entirety of the region of Yemen converts to Islam. All of this sequence of events goes back to the revelation of Surah Al-Ahqaf. Yemen was brought by Amir al-Mu'mineen, which was brought forth by this one particular individual, Malik ibn Amir al-Ash'ari. who he himself went to Mecca on his own, having heard these verses about Yemen being revealed, about Al-Ahqaf being revealed. And then he comes and converts at the hand of Rasulullah. What is very interesting about Surah Al-Ahqaf and what happens next about this region, many of you may actually know that this Al-Ash'ari family moved to the city of Kufa. After the martyrdom of our third Imam alayhi salam, even up till the time of Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salam, this Al-Ash'ari family situated themselves within the city of Kufa. After this Al-Ash'ari family moved to the city of Qum and established the Shi'i presence within the city of Qum that until now remains a stronghold for the Shi'i community, one of the greatest centers of learning that we have until today. The entirety of this movement started from this point with Surah Al-Ahqaf. It helps us to be able to understand the movement of the Prophet and how one action, how one movement reverberates throughout history. One surah is revealed, and you can see as to where it ends up reaching. In the same way, when we remember the martyrdom of Abu al-Fadl, we remember that just one moment reverberates throughout history. Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam says, I want to be able to find a wife for me who can produce a courageous child. And from this he selects one lady from a tribe that is known for its bravery, known for having warriors within it. And from within this family comes Abu Fadl al-Abbas, salamullahi alayhi. You can imagine then that the bravery and love for Ahl al-Bayt alayhim wassalam is overflowing within the veins of this family. This is why that when the mother of Abu Fadl hears that the caravan has returned back to the city of Medina, she runs out, Baneen alayha salam runs out to Bishr and says to him, tell me, what is the news of my son Hussain? What can Bishr say? How do you then describe what has happened to Aba Abdillah al Hussain? He says, may Allah increase your ajr, O Baneen, for your sons were killed valiantly defending Aba Abdillah. Every one of her sons are mentioned. She says, Bishr, I did not ask for any one of my sons. You have torn my heart to pieces. I did not ask for the outcome of Abu Fadl. I want to know what happened to my beloved Hussain. What can Bishr say other than his head was placed upon a spear, his body was left to be unburied for 3 days, they trampled upon his chest and it was broken into pieces. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the appearance of Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam, to allow us to be alongside him at all times in our life and in our death. If we are to pass away from this world before his coming, Ya Allah, raise us from our graves so that we can partake in the victories of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. Ya Allah, help us to understand the revelation of the Quran and apply it into our own lives. Walhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa salli ya Rabbi ala Muhammad wa alihi at-tahirin.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وجل فرجهم begin to erupt from the tents of Aba Abdillah. Cries begin to erupt from the tents of Aba Abdillah. What are these cries? These are the cries of the thirsty children saying, Al-Atash, Al-Atash, Al-Atash. 3 days thirsty, these poor children were 3 days thirsty without any water, and they can see in the distance the flowing river of Furat, the flowing river of the Euphrates. There is one man who cannot bear this. It is Aba al-Fadl al-Abbas Qamar Bani Hashim, the moon of Hashim. This is Abbas, the one who quenches, who grants the wishes of everyone. When Aba Abdillah requested for Abbas to go and get one night of salat, he said to Abbas to go and get that night. This is Aba al-Fad. Whatever hajat you have, ask Abbas tonight. For we are reciting its tragedies. The one who was not able to fight because his master did not allow him, but he could not bear to see the children thirsty. He goes to Aba Abdillah. He says, Mawla, O Master Hussain, allow me to quench the cries of the children. Aba Abdillah says, you are my backbone, you are my flag bearer. How can I let you go, oh Abbas? Aba al-Faz insisted. He says, Ya Aba Abdillah, you did not let me fight, but allow me to at least get water for your Ruqayya, for your Sakina, for your Ali Asghar. Aba Abdillah, after the insistence of Abbas, he says, go, but before you go, get permission from your sister Zainab, for you know how much she loves you. Aba al-Fadl, he goes to the tent of Zainab. He goes to Zainab and says to her, oh my sister Zainab, allow me to go and get water for the children. Zainab, she says, Abbas, sit next to me. She begins to narrate a story. She says, oh Abbas, there was a time when I was with our father Ali in the streets of Kufa. We were going towards the market. Haydar, our father, said to me, oh Zainab, there will come a time where in this very market you will become a seerah, a captive. You know what Zainab said to him? She says, oh father, how can that be possible when I have 18 brothers and one of them is Abu Father? But now that I see you leaving me, oh Abbas, I know soon I will become a seerah, I will become a captive. Abbas, he begins to gallop towards the Euphrates ferociously, like the son of Haydar he is. He goes towards the water. Imagine you are Abu Fadl, 3 days thirsty without any water in the heat of Karbala. He goes to the river, he picks it with his hands, this cold water. Do you know what Abbas says? He says, Ya nafs min ba'd al-huli, oh nafs, in your master's lips so thirsty. How can the water touch your lips? He began to hear the cries of the children go louder and louder. You can imagine Ruqayya saying, do not worry, my uncle Abbas is coming. Do not worry, my uncle Aba al-Fad will be here soon. Abbas, with the water flask, he runs towards the tents, but he sees that that enemies are around him. They are ambushing him from every angle, but he does not care. He has one mission: to get water to the thirsty children. They attack him from his right, severing his right arm. Then they attack him from his left, severing his left arm. You know what, Abbas? He did not even look behind for a second. They see, why has this man not stopped? They see in his teeth the water bag that he is carrying. They begin to shoot arrows, trying to pierce the water bag. Abbas, he does not care. He tries to protect it with his chest. But when the arrow struck the bag, and when the water began to pour, Abbas's hopes began to pour. He tried to run back to the Euphrates, but then an enemy strikes the head of Abbas. He cries out, Adrik Mawla, Adrik Akha, help me brother, help me my master. Aba Abdillah, he hears the cries of Abbas. He rushes to the aid of Abu Fadil. You know what they did to Abu Fadil? They struck the eye of Abbas. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Abbas could not see. You know what, Aba Abdillah approached to him. He said, oh enemy, don't kill me before my Aba Abdillah comes here. Aba Abdillah says, do not worry Abbas, it is your Hussain. He grabs him in his lap. Aba Fadl says to Aba Abdillah, one eye has an arrow, the other has a blood. Wipe the blood so that I can see you before I leave this world. Cry for Abbas, cry for Abu Fadl. Aba Abdillah, he is holding his beloved brother, his beloved flag bearer Abbas. He begins to see tears pour from the eyes of Abu Fadl. He says to him, oh my brother, why do you cry when Hussain is with you? Look at the reply. Look at the reply of Abbas. He says, oh Hussain, you are with me in my final moments, but who will be with you, Hussain, when you are all alone? Let me tell you, Abu Fadl, on the chest of Hussain is Shibar. And who is watching? Zainab is watching, saying, do not strike my brother Hussain. Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain. If the brothers could rise up so we can lament Abu Fadl tonight, so we can lament and remember this great flag bearer. Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain. Inshallah, brothers, if you form 3 lines, inshallah, so that we can better commemorate. Please, please, inshallah, let us beat for Aba Abdillah. Let us lament for his brother. Let us lament for the lonely one of Karbala. Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain, Ya Thar Allah, Ya Hussain, Ya. With your voices, brothers, why are you shy? Tonight, Abbas, we are remembering him. Cry out your wishes. Cry out the name that he was crying out. Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain, Hussain, Ya Hussain, Ya Thar Allah, Ya Hussain, Ya. Abu Fadl, oh on the hopes of the children. Abu Fadil, on the bearer of water. Abu Fadil, on the hopes of the children. Raise your arms for Abbas and recite with me. Abu Fadil, on the hopes of the children. Abu Fadil, on the bearer of water. Abu Fadil, on the hopes of the children. Abu Fadil, oh, the bearer of water. Abu Fadil, oh, the hopes of the children. Abu Fadil, oh, the bearer of water. Abu Fadil, oh, the hopes of the children. Abu Fadil, oh, the bearer of water. Abu Fadil, oh, the hopes of the children. Oh, the bearer of water. When we were younger, oh brother, you would quench my thirst with water. When we were younger, oh brother, you would quench my thirst with water. We can hear the cries of children. Who is our water bearer? Who is our water bearer? When I want to see my father, I will look at you, oh brother, oh the one who is my Haydar, who will now protect our sister, who will now protect our sister. Oh my brother, how can you come to ask me? Oh my brother, how can I let you leave me? Abu Fadil, oh the hopes of the children. Abu Fadil, oh the bearer of water. Abu Fadil, oh the hopes of the children. Abu Fadil, oh the bearer of water. When the arrow struck on your eye, that arrow struck into me. When the arrow struck on your eye, that arrow struck into me. As the blood poured down on your cheeks, this is how my heart now bleeds. This is how my heart bleeds. Oh my brother, into pieces, seeing you has broken me. Oh my brother, into pieces, seeing you has broken me. And I don't know, oh Aba Fad, how do I carry your body? How do I carry your body? What do I say when I will see my daughter? What do I say when she asks about her uncle? What do I say when I will see my daughter? What do I say when she will ask about her uncle? Abu Fadil, oh the hopes of the children. Abu Fadil, oh the bearer of water. Abu Fadil. Brothers, together please, it's very simple lines. Abu Fadil, oh the hopes of the children. Abu Fadil, oh the bearer of water. Abu Fadil, oh the hopes of the children. Abu Fadil, oh the bearer of water. On the backbone of this army, how can I bear your tragedy? I call you, O son of Ali, why do you not reply to me? Why don't you reply to me? That I must come home, my brother, where you will go see my mother. That I must come home, my brother, where you will go see my mother. After I lost you and Akbar, my back has now been broken. My back has now been broken. After you left, your Hussein is now alone. After you left, Zainab will be on her own. After you left, your Hussein is now alone. After you left, Zainab will be on her own. Abu Fadil, all the hopes of the children. Abu Fadil, all the bearer. My heart is seeking for a remedy. I come to you, oh the son of Ali. Raise your hands. My heart is seeking for a remedy. I come to you, oh the son of Ali. You're the door of wishes, I the needy. If only Abbas you would look at me. You are the cure to all of my worries. For the love of Hussein, you are the key. I'm the beggar at your door, look at me. Without you I don't have anybody. All of my life I give to you. Take my eyes and my hands so they can serve you. All of my life I give to you. Take my eyes and my hands so they can serve you. Write on my grave above my name, I'm a servant and my master is Hussein. Abu Fadil, Abu Fadil, Abu Fadil, Abu Fadil, Abu Fadil, Abu Fadil, Abu Fadil. What greater blessing than for a servant? What greater blessing than for a servant to have a master like Abu Fadil? I do not want anything, oh master. With you all of my wishes are fulfilled. My heart is wandering in that pathway between the shrines of Abbas and Hussein. In every moment of my nights and day, I am yearning for Bainul Haramain. There's no reward better for me than to be by your side, O son of Ali. There's no reward better for me than to be by your side, O son of Ali. To spend my nights beside your shrine, from Isha till Fajr I'll be by your side. Lady Zainab, Lady Zahra, pray for me that I can reach Karbala. Abu Fadil, Abu Fadil, Abu Fadil, Abu. Let me put it on for you. Abu Fadil, Abu Fadil, Abu Fadil, Abu Fadil. Even when you had conquered the river, even if you conquered 1,000 times, even when you had conquered the river, even if you conquered 1,000 times, until the water reaches your brother. You would have come back thirsty every time. The flag of Hussain will always fly high. The flag of Hussain will always fly high. For you're the flag bearer of Karbala. Even with 7 hands you will still fight. Defend the children of Fatima. Oh, flag bearer Abu Fadil. Oh, the bearer of water Abu Fadil. Oh, flag bearer Abu Fadil. Oh, the bearer of water Abu Fadil. Oh, my master, oh, my teacher, when I look in your eyes I see Haydar. Abu Fadil, Abu Fadil, Abu Fadil, Abu Fadil, Abu Fadil. When I heard you call my name, oh brother, when I heard you call my name, oh brother, that's where the earth and heavens were shaken. I felt the pain that came to my mother, just like her, my back has now been broken. Oh Abbas, I ask you to forgive me. I can no longer carry your body. I call out your name, O son of Ali. Why do you no longer reply to me? Back to the tent, get up brother. Without us, who will protect our sister? Back to the tent, get up brother. Without us, who will protect our sister? After your death, who will be left? Who will be with Hussein in his last breath? Abu Fadil, 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 Abu Fadil. For the love of Abu Fadil, for the love of Aba Abdillah, for the protection of all the Mazloom around the world, for the protection of all Muslimin around the world and Muslimat, recite Allah salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.